ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. And once again, I got my good friend Dominick here from Fantasy Hot Read. Dominick, how you doing?
Yeah, Alice, I'm doing great. We had a good weekend of football last week. The Saints won, although it was probably the most boring game of the weekend. But they still slimed all over the Bears. And as we were talking about off air, I think that no matter who you are, unless you're maybe a fan of another team in the AFC North, you have a soft spot in your heart for the Cleveland Browns. So it was awesome to see them actually pull out a victory.
Hey, you guys, I love seeing the Browns pull off the win. I'm not sad to see the Steelers get eliminated at all. Dear Nickelodeon, please host more games. It was fabulous. I loved it. I love seeing the slime cam. Had a great time watching that Saints game on Nickelodeon. We got to do that more often. Let's do this again next year for the playoffs.
Do it for the Super Bowl.
Or how about the Super Bowl? Come on, Nickelodeon. Well, you guys, we are down to our divisional round. That means we only got 4 total games this weekend, but we got some 4 exciting games. So let's get started with our Saturday matchups. Starting with the NFC game, we got the Los Angeles Rams headed to Green Bay to face the Packers. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, I picked the Rams to win last week. Unfortunately, Wolford got hurt in the second drive of the game, not even the first half. It was in the second drive of the game. Had to go to the hospital. They said he has a stinger, so we don't know if it's going to be him or Jared Goff or possibly Blake Bortles this week. We also don't know if Aaron Donald's going to be able to play in this game. He did bruise his ribs. I'm sure they're going to juice him up with some Teradol or something before the game starts, and he'll be out there playing. Either way, they're going to make life hard on Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers is just on another level this year. They're going to try and shut down Devontae Adams with Jalen Ramsey. I think Jalen Ramsey, if anybody can shut down Adams, it's going to be Ramsey, but I don't think you're going to be able to shut him down. You may be able to slow him down a little bit, but even if they do slow him down, then they're going to have to worry about Aaron Jones. So this is going to be very tough for both teams. I really think it's going to be a high-scoring game because I do think that the Rams are going to be able to do something against the offensive Green Bay here and possibly keep them down a little bit. So I do think it's probably going to be 24-20 or 24-17 or something like that, but I do think that Green Bay in the end is going to be able to pull it out.
The Rams, it terrified me what happened to Wolford. I'm glad that it's just a stinger and nothing more traumatic than that. Having question marks with that offense has always been what has made me hesitant to pick them in games all season long. They have a really, really strong defense with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey there. So that's what's keeping them in games and being able to propel them to wins during the season. Green Bay, however, has a really, really strong offense. And even if Aaron Donald has to play injured, I don't know, especially I'll say if Aaron Donald has to play injured, he might be a little hampered keeping up with trying to get through that O-line of the Packers to get to Aaron Rodgers, which is going to play an issue there. And even if you put Jalen Ramsey on Devontae Adams, they also have a stout running game as well with Aaron Jones. I really, really like this Packers team. The Rams, because I'm not real sure who's going to be at QB at this point, kind of make me a little nervous. Their running game is decent, but I don't think that they have enough offensive weaponry to be able to overcome what the Packers can do. Again, like Dominick said, I expect it to be a close game because of how good that defense is, but I just feel like the Packers have a stronger offense, and at the end of the day, they'll absolutely be able to get the win, especially because they're there at home. Moving over to our AFC matchup on Saturday, we got the Baltimore Ravens headed to Buffalo to face the Bills. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, I think this might be the best matchup of the weekend. This is going to be very tough. We know the Ravens want to run the ball, and they're going to have to do that in this game if they want to keep Josh Allen off the field. It's supposed to be cold there, which it's Buffalo, so that's kind of like saying that snow is white, but it is supposed to be cold there. There is possible chance of snow there as well, which Lamar Jackson's hoping there isn't. He's already said he doesn't want to play in the snow, so that's going to be tough if there is snow here. I still think they're going to be able to run the ball, but I do think Buffalo's defense has been getting much better over the past month. Josh Allen, if it weren't for Aaron Rodgers, to me, he would be the MVP. So I do think him and the connection he has with Stephon Diggs, who had a monster game in the first round, is going to be just a little bit too much for the Baltimore Ravens. I do think it's going to be probably within a field goal, maybe even 1 point, but I do think that the Bills are going to be able to just pull this one out.
This is going to be a really, really fun matchup. First of all, I want to say I'm so happy for Ravens being able to move on to this round. There was talk that Lamar Jackson wasn't able to get his team a playoff win. He's finally proven people wrong, and he's gotten himself here. So he does have the kind of arm and the kind of leg talent that's going to get them the wins that they need. And he has a good running game this year behind J.K. Dobbins, and more J.K. Dobbins than Mark Ingram at this point in the season. So that's good to see him. We saw Hollywood Brown pick up a little more last week. They've got a pretty good defense, but they're headed to Buffalo, whose defense has really, really looked stout over the last part of the season. And Josh Allen just looks like such a beast. Again, like I keep saying, that addition of Stephon Diggs there in Buffalo was the key piece that was missing for him. And it has been a phenomenal matchup. Love seeing that there for them. This is going to be a fun game to watch, like I said at the top. But at the end of the day, more confidence in what Buffalo's defense can do. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be an exciting game. I expect a lot of touchdowns because both of these quarterbacks can run for touchdowns as well. At the end of the day, I got to give it to Buffalo. They're at home. They're energized. They're focused. They're ready to move on and get the win and overcome some history that they've had in the playoffs. So definitely got to give this one to the Bills. Moving on to our Sunday matchups, we got our AFC matchup first. We got the Cleveland Browns headed to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Dominic, who you got?
Well, can I just use the Chase Claypool quote and say it's okay if they beat the Steelers because they're going to get whooped this week or whatever he said, snapped, or I forget what he said. I mean, that's just sour grapes. He's just stupid, but whatever. I want to say my heart says take the Browns here because I really want to see them win this. I love Andy Reid, but he got a Super Bowl last year. I don't think it's going to happen, though. The Chiefs have not been blowing teams out lately. They haven't won by double digits since they beat the Jets in Week 8. That said, this is Andy Reid coming off a bye, which is scary anytime, but especially in the playoffs, it's going to be scary. So I do think he's going to draw something up here to be able to keep the Browns from doing what they did last week. I know a lot of those points came off turnovers. That's not going to happen this week. We did see a couple games this year where Patrick Mahomes had a lot of turnovers, but it's not really in his DNA, so I don't think they're going to get all those turnovers like they did last week. And if they don't get the turnovers, I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points to win this game. They are going to run the ball with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, so they're going to try and stay on the field as much as possible to limit what Mahomes can do. But we've seen that Mahomes doesn't need a lot of time. He can get down the field in a minute or 2 minutes and score, and then it doesn't matter if the Cleveland has the 8-minute drives. So I do think that Cleveland is going to meet their maker here, unfortunately, and I do think they're going to lose this game, so I'm going to have to take the Chiefs at home.
First of all, like we said it at the beginning of our podcast, kudos to the Browns to even getting this far. Keep in mind, the Browns were without Stefanski. They were without Denzel Ward. This team was down a lot of players and coaches because of COVID. And everyone is slated to come back this week, so they should be at full strength, and that'll be very good for them. I know they'll be happy to have Stefanski on the sideline instead of having to watch the game at home and talk to them on FaceTime after the game. So kudos for them that they got there. Love the way they played last week. They had a phenomenal game against the Steelers. The turnovers alone, they picked off Big Ben 4 times in that game. It was an incredible performance that they put together. I was so excited to see what they were able to do, but they're facing the Chiefs. And you guys, yes, the Chiefs didn't have a lot of blowout games because people now know what to expect from them, but it's the Chiefs at the end of the day. And the way Patrick Mahomes is playing right now is just so incredible to see. And he's got some great receivers there, and he's got a phenomenal tight end there. So I expect a good, really, really good game out of the Browns. I really do, especially if you saw what they were capable of doing last week. But the Chiefs are just playing on a whole nother level right now, and I just don't see a way for the Browns to be able to pull off a win. I don't think that they're going to get completely blown out. Like, I don't expect them to not score at all, but I do see the Chiefs being able to win by, I'm going to say, 2 touchdowns in this game. But it's going to be fun, and definitely watch this matchup because you might see some future things in this game, in particular for the Browns. So kudos for them to get this far, but they will be eliminated this weekend. And last up, we got the Battle of the Old Men. No country for old men, people. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers headed to New Orleans to face the Saints. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, I hate to go chalk here with going 1-2, 1-2, but I do think we've seen the Saints blow out the Tampa Bay twice this year, once in New Orleans in week 1, and then once they crushed their spirit in Tampa Bay later on in the year when they only gave up 3 points to Tom Brady late at night. We do know that the defense here is very good. They were very strong last week against Chicago. Didn't give up a touchdown to the last play of the game where Jimmy Graham caught a touchdown, then pulled a Forrest Gump and just ran out of the stadium. I don't think it's going to be like that this week because Tampa Bay has much more on offense than the Bears do. Mike Evans looked good last week, even though he was playing with the knee injury. Chris Godwin could have had a huge game last week. He did have a good game, but he could have had a huge game if he didn't quit dropping passes. Antonio Brown even got a touchdown last week. Rob Gronkowski didn't really do much. He just spent most of his time blocking, but if they get him involved, he's just as good as well. And that they don't really like using the run game, but they do have one if they need to. On the other side of the ball, we know they have Alvin Kamara. Michael Thomas is back. So I do think this could be a little bit of a higher scoring game. It might be the highest scoring game of the entire weekend, but I do think in the end that the Saints are going to be able to pull it out, and I think the young gun in Drew Brees is going to be able to beat the old man and Tom Brady.
This is the battle of the old guys, but it's going to be probably the most fun of all the games. Tampa Bay has a stout offense. You saw what Leonard Fournette can do. We saw what Antonio Brown could do. Even Mike Evans, who's hobbled, is able to still put up good numbers. Same thing with Chris Godwin. And they're facing the Saints, you guys. Saints defense has had a couple games that kind of upset me, but overall they've played pretty well. And again, here's another team with a really, really good offense. Michael Thomas is back healthy. Alvin Kamara in that backfield is a beast this year. Hell, they got Latavius Murray as another option there. This is a really, really good team. And I love what Drew Brees has been doing. I love what Tom Brady's been doing. It's hard for me to pick because I want both of them to win, and I realistically know that they both can't win. But New Orleans is at home, and playing there in that Mercedes-Benz Dome is something totally different. And so I got to give this game to the Saints. I just feel like they're going to be able, there's some kind of magic is going to happen at the end of this game. It's going to be tight through the rest of the game, but some kind of magic is going to happen right there at the end of the game, and they'll win it by like a field goal or a touchdown. No kind of blowout or anything, but definitely I feel like the Saints are going to pull off the win in this game. Well, you guys, that's all our matchups for this weekend, but we got some interesting news that I kind of want to touch on, and that's the Houston Texans situation. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but Houston Texans is kind of a mess of a team. Cal McNair, the owner, had told Deshaun Watson that he would consult him on personnel decisions, and then he went ahead and hired Nick Caserio, and then Watson has been advocating for them to at least interview Eric Bieniemy, and they just waited till recently to say, okay, fine, we would. Then out of nowhere, Andre Johnson pops in, the former Texans wide receiver, and he's like, listen, Watson's career is going to be wasted there because they waste the best of players' careers. I guess he's kind of saying that his career was kind of wasted there because they never did anything or went anywhere. And so Watson's trying to force his way to Miami. So, Dominic, saying all of that, should the Texans make a trade? And if they do make a trade, what would be a good fit? And would Tua even want to come to play in Houston considering all the drama that's going on there with that team?
Well, it's a lot to unravel. One, Houston's not going to make a trade because the financial repercussions would be so bad for them that they couldn't afford to do it, especially with what Bill Bryan left them. So they're not going to make a trade. I know right now everything's upset, but they'll work it out. I'm sure they will. If they do, the other issue is that Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause, so he can't be traded anyway unless he agrees to wherever he wants to go to. So he's basically going to be able to say wherever he wants to go. If he does go somewhere, whether it be Miami, say for Tua, it's going to be a lot of compensation coming back. It's probably going to be Tua as well as like 3 first-round draft picks. Or, if you go somewhere else, maybe to the Jets, it'll be like 4 first-round draft picks or 3 first-round draft picks and Sam Darnold. So it's going to take a lot to get Deshaun Watson from them. On the other side, talking about Cal McNair was totally in the wrong here. Deshaun Watson should have a say in who the next head coach is going to be because he's going to have to work with him every day. And I do think that they should have interviewed Eric Bieniemy. We both think that anyway, just because we think Eric Bieniemy is a good coach. We don't know what relationship Watson has with Bieniemy. We don't know how he knows that he would be a good coach or anything, other than maybe getting talked to from Patrick Mahomes and saying, hey, this guy's a good coach, you'd want him there. But he doesn't really know on a personal level. The fact that he told me he would consult for the GM is just, it's not smart on Cal McNair's part, and it's not something that he should have done either. Yes, he should have say on the head coach, but when it comes to the general manager, he has to make a lot of decisions, and it doesn't, not necessarily just personnel, but what's to say that if Omar Khan, who they said had the job, and then Jack Easterby came and said, no, you got to hire this guy, and then he said, okay. If Omar Khan hadn't gotten there, that if that was, say, Watson's preferred choice, that Omar Khan wouldn't feel like he was beholden to Watson. And then even, say, later in his career, if Watson was slipping, he'd be like, oh, well, I know he's slipping, but I don't want to go out and draft a quarterback or pick somebody up off free agent because it's going to affect my relationship with him, or I don't want to look like I'm trying to get rid of him. So when it comes to the GM, I think that should be separate. He shouldn't have a say in that. I think but it should have been the search firm. Definitely should have had a say in that, and they should have gone with who they felt the best one was. He shouldn't have just gone, said, all right, we're going to do this, and then end up going with somebody else, just like the Cleveland Browns did with their firm for the quarterback when they said they should have drafted Teddy Bridgewater, and they said, okay, yeah, let's get Johnny Manziel instead. But when it comes to the head coach, they should have certainly interviewed Bieniemy. They should interview a lot of people. The only thing this makes me think now is that they're not going to hire a head coach until after the Super Bowl, because now they're not allowed to interview Bieniemy until after the Super Bowl since they waited so long, and they're just doing it now to appease Deshaun Watson, which I do not like. I don't think they should have done it just to appease him. They should have done it because he's super qualified, and they should have been doing it anyway. But now it just feels like they're doing it just to say, okay, fine, we'll do it. Here, it's like placating your kid by giving him a piece of candy when he asks for a bag or whatever. It's just giving him like a little token, something. I don't think it's right at all, and I don't think Eric Bieniemy would want to go there. I don't think he should want to go there. I think if Andy Reid is smart, he would tell him to turn that down and, take something else, or stay here and we'll give you a raise or something. But he should not want to go to Houston. He should not even consider interviewing with Houston, in my opinion. If he wants to, he could call Deshaun Watson and explain to him why he's not interviewing. But I would certainly, if I were him, I would not interview with Houston, because I don't think he has any shot at getting that job. And I wouldn't, even as a first-time head coach, I wouldn't want to go there knowing that Jack Easterby is controlling pretty much everything there, even though he's not supposed to be in control of anything.
100% everything you said is valid and on point. I understand why Watson would want to go to Miami, because he would be able to be under Brian Flores and Chris Greer, who are the only black head coach and GM duo currently in the league. So I get why he would want to go there. I don't realistically see the Texans being willing to give up as much capital as they would have to in order to make that happen. That being said, what can Cal McNair do at this point to appease Watson? And like you said, okay, now we want to interview Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy should not be the fall guy every time you need to interview a black coach for a head coach position, and you just call up Eric Bieniemy to fill in that position. If you legitimately know that that's not who you want to hire, and you're not actually going to consider Eric Bieniemy, don't keep calling him up for these jobs. That still pisses me off. I have a very huge issue with that. I do think if it could happen, it would be a good fit, and I'll explain why. Only in the fact that look at how well Patrick Mahomes has done under Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. And some of that does fall. I know most people are going to say, well, that's Andy Reid. No, because if that's the case, think of Andy Reid's history over with the Eagles. He developed some good quarterbacks that were never able to get over the top. And then you get here into Kansas City with Eric Bieniemy, and he develops this quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, who goes to the Super Bowl. Can I see that level of commitment and that level of development happen for Deshaun Watson there in Houston? I absolutely could see that. Now, they would have to get better receivers there, because we won't get into the whole ridiculous trading of Nuke that happened or whatever, but they got a couple WR1s there better than what they have. I definitely could see there being good development under Eric Bieniemy for Deshaun Watson. I don't know that will happen. Cal McNair is just doing it to appease Watson. I do not believe he has any intention whatsoever in hiring Bieniemy. I don't know why, but that being said, I don't expect a good ending to this story, unfortunately. I see Watson still being there because he signed the extension. He's going to be there. And like you said, he has a no trade clause, so it would have to be on him to make that deal. And I don't see McNair being willing to give up a whole bunch of capital to get it done. So he's stuck there, unfortunately, and hopefully they will consult him and they will find a head coach that'll make him happy. But like you said, with the Easterby situation being there, it's still going to be a bunch of hot hot mess and misery there in Houston. And then that makes me sad for Watson. And the other topic that I have to talk about, you guys, is the Eagles. We knew it was coming. And I think, especially after what happened in week 17, I think that kind of sped up the inevitable of what was coming. I think a lot of people had said that they thought this was coming, and it came. Doug Peterson was let go, which, like I said, after the whole fiasco of week 17, we kind of have to wonder, was it because of what happened there, or is it more because of the unhappiness of Carson Wentz? So my question, Dominic, to you is, should Doug Peterson get another shot in the NFL? And if so, where do you think would he be a good fit? Could he have a repeat and take another team to the Super Bowl?
He certainly can. I mean, we saw that he is a good enough coach. He needs to get a good offense coordinator there. We saw that after Frank Reich left to go to the Colts, that he kind of slipped. He brought in some bad offense coordinators. He kind of promoted from within when he should have looked to be more creative, and he wasn't. So I do certainly think he's going to get another job. He could get one this year, possibly with the Jets, because he does have that strong connection with Joe Douglas, who's the GM there now, and he worked with him in Philadelphia for quite a number of years. So he could do that. He could also go somewhere and become an offensive coordinator if he wants to. I don't think he's going to go the offensive coordinator route if he does not get a head coaching job this year, either because he doesn't want to or he decides to sit for a year and hoping that maybe something opens up next year. That's certainly a possibility. Like I said, I think it was basically him or Carson Wentz. I don't think it was a decision that Carson Wentz made going up to Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman saying, if he doesn't go, I'm leaving. I think it was more the fact that they said that between him and the entire head coaching staff, it's like $15-20 million, where Carson Wentz, they're into him for like $500 million between the contract, the first round draft picks they gave up to get him, the one they used on him, and everything else that goes with it. So they have to make it work with him, whether that's as the starting quarterback or the backup quarterback. He has to be there. So they went with the cheaper of two options or the lesser of two evils. They probably went to Doug Peterson. Jeffrey Lurie said as much, that they talked and the philosophy was just different. I think the philosophy was that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman said, listen, you need to make it work with Carson Wentz here. And Doug Peterson said, listen, you may be able to, he didn't say this to them, but in his head he's thinking, if I was the first time head coach, or if I was just coming in here and team telling me, I need to work with the quarterback that's here, that's understandable, but I have a track record now, I have a Super Bowl here, I should be able to have my own gravitas and do what I feel is right, and they're not letting me do that, so I'm going to bounce. And he probably just decided that it was better for both parties if he did that, and that's what happened. So I do think if he wants to get a job this year, he can easily get one with the Jets, possibly with Detroit as well. But I think he might sit out a year, hoping that a place, I don't know if it would open up next year, because I don't know if he'd be on the hot seat that quick. Cliff Kingsbury has not done good in Arizona. He hasn't done good anywhere he's been a head coach, but people just keep giving him jobs anyway. But with that said, he may think that he'll be fired next offseason, and he may say, hey, listen, I can get into Arizona. I can have Kyler Murray in his third year. I can have Nuke Hopkins there. I can have a decent offensive line, a young defensive core there, and really work with this team in Arizona. Now, it's a tougher division right now than the NFC East is, but I can see him sitting out here hoping that a job like Arizona Cardinals, or possibly if Bruce Arians retires after next year, if Tom Brady decides to retire and Bruce Arians says, yeah, I'm done too, I'm 75 years old, I'm going to be done, decides to go to Tampa Bay, start something there, he might do that. So if he wants a job this year, he can get it, but I think he might sit out a year hoping something like Arizona or Tampa Bay opens up next year.
Wow, you are spreading a really hot take there. I was all on the bandwagon of he would end up with the Falcons, because I just feel like that would be a good match. But then I have to think of who's there. I don't know how close Matt Ryan is to retiring, and I don't know if that's something that he wants to take on. If Matt Ryan retires in a couple of years, of them having to start over with the new QB and Julio Jones, if he has a year left in him, he only has maybe a year or two, and same thing with Todd Gurley. So do you want to go into a situation where you're going to have to rebuild probably from scratch within the next couple of years? So that may not be the best situation. The idea you have of him sitting out a year, I think, is a perfect one, rather than going to some of these little messy situations. I don't know about anybody taking that Jets job. That's a messy, horrible situation to have to get into. Don't feel like Woody Johnson has been a hands-on owner, having been involved in being an ambassador, and therefore he hasn't been completely hands-on, kind of bumbled the whole situation and waited way too long to get rid of Gase. Don't think that would be a good fit for him either. So I really like your idea. I think maybe sitting out a year and seeing if better options open up next year, as opposed to some of these messy openings that are opening with quarterbacks that are in situations where they're probably only maybe got a year or a couple years left, and then you having to start over all over again. So kind of agree with you. That was a good idea. Well, you guys, that's all the time that we have today. I want to thank all of you guys again for listening. Enjoy football this weekend. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at the TheNFLGirl320. Dominic, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my work at SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominic, where can they read your work?
You can read my work at FantasyHotRead.com, RotoBaller.com, and ExpandTheBoxScore.com.
Thank you guys again for listening. See you back here next week.